It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our Bible study about the theme to rest in Christ, and we have today the subtitle, Free to Rest. We all know by now that the Lord shall come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat, and the earth and the works that are therein shall be burned up. So now all this shall melt away. How then shall ye be skillful with holy walk and godly nature, that ye wait and hasten to the future of the day of the Lord, when the heavens shall be consumed with fire, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat? But of the times and the seasons, brethren, we have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Now we all have understood that darkness is the opposite of light, and darkness is the lie, and light is the truth. So to not be in darkness means to be in the light, to be in the truth. And we know that the truth makes free, so he who is in the truth is free to rest in the midst of the storm. That will be our case, our state of being when we'll preach the last message to this world. We know the time. We are in the light, and we are free to rest in Him and proclaim out of this rest the greatest ever preached message from human lips, the end-time revelation of the character and love of God through small human beings. What a privilege we have to be called to be among them. Now we are living in the end-time crisis. It's the last crisis of this earth. It will go more into it. It will grow, but it's still the final crisis. It is final because it's encompassing the whole world. It is global. It is final because it has a general need of every human being, that is health. By this, it becomes a personal crisis. No one can exclude himself from it. Everyone must take a decision about it. And it's a spiritual crisis because this crisis proves what men believe where disease is coming from. That's faith. It's either coming from the explanation of the scientist or from the explanation of God. So that's the battle in which we are. And that's why there can be only two groups, two categories of people, those who believe in God and those who believe science and the devil who is behind it. And then the very specific thing of this crisis is that the danger lies only in your fellow man, because he is the only one that has the danger in himself. So relationships spread the enemy. When you make vacation in some places and when you meet people, then you are a danger for society. Isn't it amazing? And this is a proof that this crisis has in its center the law of God, which governs relationships. Now, the devil always sold the opposite to humans with the human need. That is, he sold to Eve death as life. Well, he could not sell death as death, because he cannot do that, because then no one would buy his death. So that's why he must sell death as life. He must sell freedom or prisonership as freedom. He cannot sell it differently. And today, one of his greatest deception is he sells to humans irresponsibility as responsibility. Because no one would buy irresponsibility. Everyone buys into responsibility. And the trick on it is very interesting. You're not responsible for your own health because you took it from someone, because you had to travel or whatever, but you're responsible for the health of others. Now, how can that work? How is that possible? You're not responsible for your own health, but at the same time, you're responsible for the health of another one, because you can transmit him the deadly thing and the deadly disease. Now, isn't that blowing your mind? I mean, it blows minds. It twisted everything. You cannot respond for your health, but then you're responsible for the other health. This is a nonsense, as it has been when the devil sells something as the opposite. But everyone preaches it. You take your vaccine, you take your protection for the other one. So when you cannot protect yourself, how can you protect the other one? And all the measures that people did not help them to not get sick. Thank God. Because sickness does not come from outside. And no one else can be responsible as the one that has the disease. So, where does disease come from? Where does it originate? Will the answer to this question determine the eternal fate of the last generation? I believe yes. Because as we will see, is disease a physical issue or a spiritual issue? And if it's a spiritual issue, it's the perfect thing to finish the work. It's the perfect thing to divide the humans in just two groups. So will the answer to this question determine the eternal fate of the last generation? Yes, it will. So when God created man, he created him in the truth. So he was fulfilling the law. He was free to rest in God. But then he became a God in himself. So now he breaks the law and is separated from God. He doesn't need a God anymore. Now, who gives the consequences to man for the breaking of the law? Who gives the effect? Because disease is an effect, it's not a cause. There must be a cause for disease. So who gives the disease as an effect? And only the lawgiver can give all effects. He can give and gives the effects for fulfilling the law, and he gives the effects for breaking the law. There is no other authority that can do that except God, who is the lawgiver. And this is so important to understand. God is not responsible for my sin and for my action, but he's responsible to give me the consequence for my action. No matter if it's a blessing or a curse. Because else I could not see where I am. So let's look what the Bible says about the cause of disease. Because she's our lesson book and she is clear in all her statements. Now we cannot go through all statements, we go to a few representative statements that have no other Bible verses that contradict them. You see, sometimes we have issues where we find a Bible verse here and it looks like it would contradict. But these Bible verses have not even a looking like to be a contradiction. We take Exodus 15:26, which says, the Lord says to Moses, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. Now it's clear that here is God, the active agent that gives the effect for the cause, who were the Egyptians, who were hardened in their heart, who were disobeying. And God wanted to make them clear that there is a God above their gods. That's why he brought them over them. For I am the Lord that healeth thee. So God gives clear understanding. He gives the effect for good and for evil. In Deuteronomy 28, we find it very explicit, God given through Moses the blessing and the curse. Now, the blessing, we would say, is normal to receive from God as a consequence. Well, is it then not normal to also receive the negative consequence for the breaking of the law? That's why let's look just to these Bible verses, a few, in the whole chapter of Deuteronomy 28. We read 20 to 22. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand upon for to do, until you be destroyed, and until you perish quickly because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from the land whither thou goest to possess it. Now God will fulfill this promise even to the whole human being in the seven plagues, in which start with the pestilence. We start with a disease that God will put upon the humans who have the mark of the beast, who have not the seal of God. So they all will have the pestilence. And who will give it to them? God. The Lord shall smite thee with consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whither thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. Some of us think that it's the possession of the devil that makes the disease. No, it looks here, the Lord shall smite thee with madness. We have so many people that have Alzheimer's, and they have dementia. Where does it come from? And all other mental issues. Well, the Lord puts on them. It's a consequence. It's not, the Lord doesn't give the cause is the human, but God gives the consequence as a result of breaking the law. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. So I think those are very serious words. Now, we could misunderstand them if we have not the law in front of us, that God does nothing for himself. God does all these things to help. Even though disease in some cases comes and the person does not get well from it, God gives all consequences for the benefit of the human being. Even the 7 plagues come for the benefit. He will prove to the 7 plagues that those who were lost, even when they got the worst consequences in their life possible, they still stick to the deception. And by this he proves, I could do nothing to save you. I tried it with the good. I offered you through the whole light to know everything. You ignored it. You passed it by. And now I prove to you, even through the evils of evils, that you are lost. That you might understand that there is a point of no return. There's a point where the heart is so hardened, like in the case of Pharaoh. So will God prove to the 7 plagues that this people could not be saved, no matter what God would have done for them. But in most cases, God gives the disease in order to save, in order to make aware the human being that something in him is wrong. He does not give the consequence in order to destroy or to punish, but to save. That's why he made physicians. That's why Christ came as a physician, as we will look, not to heal the effect, but to heal from the cause. And by this, the healing of the effect is included. I would have no authority as a physician to preach the gospel to my patients who are sick if their sickness would not be the result of their own deception of the heart, which they are not even aware. But through a long time disease sometimes, the Lord works on the heart of man, that it might get soft, that it might be able to reason. Because with the most, You have no access to their reason. So God fights and gives all the effects, the blessing and the curse, for the good. Because God can never give anything that is not for the good. Even when he will destroy Satan and all his hosts, it is for the good of them also and for the good of the whole universe. So God never does anything that is selfish or that is for him. It always is done for the benefit of his creation. So the Bible is very clear on the cause of disease in the Old Testament, and now we take a few Bible verses from the New Testament and read Mark 2, 5-8. We know the history that this paralytic or palsy, this man, is brought through Jesus through the roof. And when Jesus saw their faith, now you see, it needs faith in order to be healed. He said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, Why does this man speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sin but God only? And immediately when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they so reasoned within themselves, he said unto them, Why reason ye these things in your hearts? Whether is it easier to say to the sick of the palsy, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Arise and take up thy bed and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins, he said to the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, Arise and take up thy bed and go thy way into thine house. And immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, insomuch that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, We never saw it on this fashion. Now what an interesting story. We could sit a long time to get out much truth out of it, but that what is very obvious, let us look to. Imagine Jesus would have healed the man from palsy without freeing him from the deception of his heart. Imagine he would have said to the palsy, Arise, take thy bed, and walk. And he would have not relieved him from the deception of his heart that was full of guilt, as we spoke last time. So, would he have been free to rest? Would he have been gone home with guilt? That's impossible. That would be the healing of the devil. The devil so heals that he removes an effect, but he cannot heal from the heart. And so the problem will come up in another place. All the medicine that the devil developed is just to remove a symptom, but then it goes to another place. It never removes the cause. So let us here reason and see Jesus is starting with the heart, because there is where the need is. And then because he can forgive sin, that is, because he can make free from the bondage of sin, he can say, Rise, take thy bed, and walk. We have another example which is also very typical for Jesus' healing. It is on a Sabbath day, and they are in the synagogue. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself. So this is obviously a disease that she is bowed down and cannot make herself lift up. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. Now what was this saying? Was she loosed from the infirmity of her spirit or of her body? Now if we would not know Jesus, we might get confused, think, oh, he just removed the infirmity of the body. But the Bible says she had a spirit of infirmity 18 years. And even the context shows it nicer. And he laid his hand on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them, therefore, come out, be healed, and not in the Sabbath day. I so like Jesus that he did not let this saying unrebuked. The Lord then answered him and said, Thou hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound these 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day? So what did Jesus loose her? From whom did she loose her? So did the devil keep her in prison? Was it the active action of the devil? Of course not. We know our sinful nature binds us to the Satan, and we must fulfill his command. So she was bound with the disease. That bondage came out through disease. And was it not the Sabbath day, the best day, to make one free from the deception of the heart? So, when the disease recovered, he had to bring a burnt offering and a sin offering. We know that from Leviticus 4, which also proves that it was sin, the internal in the heart, that make the disease. Now, some people come and say, well, can the body not be damaged also through other things? Yes. The body can be primarily damaged and destroyed by many things. Those are like poison, gases, irradiation, temperature, and violence. And there might be other things as well, but as examples. These are all measurable and quantifiable outside of humans. So when someone is poisoned, I can go back and see where the poison gets in. When he was poisoned by gases, by irradiation or temperature, we can go back. Or even violence, we can go back and see where the outside element took place and damaged the body and could even destroy him. But the primary damage of the body by microorganisms is excluded because they are always secondary. Why are they always secondary? Because microorganisms can only exist on the soil on which they depend on. So if we have viruses, bacteria, and fungus, they cannot be measured outside or quantifiable outside of the humans. You must take it from the human sample because it can only grow and multiply there. Now I speak here just from bacteria and fungus because they are living elements. This is not a living thing. So the virus is just an excrement. It's a result of the damaging of a cell, not the cause of it. But as the devil always twists things apart, he must bring and say, well, the virus is the cause. No, the virus is an effect of the damage, not the damage itself. And by twisting it, putting it in a nano space, one must believe it. But we know bacteria and fungus, we can see under the microscope, and even fungus you can see with your own eye without needing any measurement for it. Bigger, make it bigger. How can they come? How can they be outside of nowhere? No, they must be on a ground. And they cannot pass beyond that ground. If I have an inflammation on a certain part of my body, then there the virus, the bacteria and the fungus may grow. But they cannot grow anywhere else. And if the body heals, they disappear. They are not dead, they are still there, but they're not active anymore. So it's always an activation through the body. So microorganisms, they always exist on top of a pre-existing damage of the host. If the host would not be before damaged, they would not be there, multiplying as a secondary chain of action. So as they are just existing, activated by the body, because he is already damaged, they can never be the cause. A virus can never be the cause of disease. A bacteria can never be the cause of disease. A fungus can never be the cause of disease. I hope that's all, because we cannot see how they get out from outside in. We have no way to follow the thing like we can do it with gases, with all other elements that I enumbered before. So let us conclude. Does sin and disease come from outside or from within the human being? And the Bible is very clear. Sin comes from the heart. Jesus says it, and James says it. And if sin comes from the heart and disease is the effect of sin, then also the disease must come from the heart. And the Proverbs and the Bible itself proves it in all its writings. So sin and disease originate from within the human being. That's why we cannot follow the steps. We cannot follow outside steps. If we have an outside damage on the body, we can go and follow it and find the outside cause. But in disease, we don't. That's why medicine is so weird. They have no idea where disease is coming from because they cannot follow a path. But they ignore the spirit. They ignore the action of the spirit on the human body. That's why they don't know where all the diseases come from. They come from the heart. So the cause of disease is sin, but the cause of sin is sinful nature. I am God. And this is an innate thing. We are born with this. We have no responsibility that we are born with it. But since we are born with it, and God brought a solution, the only solution is to die, to crucify, to destroy it. And out of that destruction, come out to a new life. The life of Christ, the true identity, being born of God. You see, if we would have brought sinful nature about us, then we don't need a new birth. We don't need a new life. We just remove that what we brought on us and give it away. No, we are born with it. It's a born with state that keeps us in prison. And the only way to escape is to crucify it and have the new nature. I spoke with a man these days who has beaten his wife. And they came for counseling. And I said to him, could you have avoided to beat your wife? Because it's not the first time, it's the second or third time. But this time he has really beaten her bad. And what was his answer? He said, yes, I could. Then I said, why did you not avoid it then? And I told him, I said, as long as you believe you could have avoided it, you have no choice to be saved. You're going to be lost. Because God proves to your action that you're a prisoner of your sinful nature. And now instead of going to the cross, destroying it, and taking in the new life out of which you can never beat your wife, you think you could have avoided it. And now you take that decision, I won't do it again. I said, if you don't convert, I never recommend your wife to come together with you again. Because conversion means you need to see that you're a prisoner of the devil, and the only way to come out is to die and take the new life. But as long as you think you have a choice not to do the evil, you will not die on the cross. You will never go to the cross. This is the deception of the human being. And I explained it last time already in the idea of guilt. But let's see it, because the Christians believe they have a choice. I spoke with another lady who did some mistakes in her life, and I asked her, could you have avoided them? And she said, yes. And then I said, why did you then not avoid them? Because it's a very simple question. Well, if you could, why did you not do it? Because what you are able to do, you don't need a savior. out of this new life, when you have the new life, you don't need a Savior, because out of that you do only the right things. Because you're connected to God, you're born of God. How can you ever do anything wrong? It's not possible. But the wrongdoing is a proof that we are the slaves of the devil. So if you think you could avoid it, then do it. But then you have to do it yourself. Then you don't need a Savior. You do not cry out like Paul, "Oh, wretched man who I am. Who will save me from this body of sin, of death? Who will save me from it?" To be free to rest means to be free from self-deception, to live in the truth, to have been freed from the body of death. Because he or it brings us all our problems. It must be removed. It must be crucified. And we must have a new life. Then, when we are having the new life of God through Christ, we are no longer doing anything for ourselves. We are being selfless like God. Would you like to be free to rest? The only way is the cross and the resurrection, taking the new life of Christ. Now we are in the sifting process. The people of God are put in two categories: those who believe science and do what science says, and those who believe God and do what God says. There is no middle way, because it's about life. It's about health. There are no middle way. There's no middle way. There are only these two ways. And the question is, which way will you take? Because you cannot go on both. You cannot go like this. No. You must decide once for all. Are you responsible for your health and your disease as well? Then you will take that responsibility, and whenever God gives you the disease, He will show you that something in yourself is not yet ready. And you will grow through His effects that He gives you into your life to expel totally one day sinful nature. So since the time is very short, we must today know where disease is coming from. And if we are in doubt, we will lose it. But if we are in clarity, like I think this message is very clear, the Bible is very clear, there's no contradiction on this topic, then we are going to follow Him. And if we choose confusion, then even that is unexplainable. But it's an option to stay in the confusion. I would not like to stay there. I want to get out. I want to be free to rest, to be one with God, to be selfless like Him, having responsibility for everything I do or not do. Amen.